All right, let's watch the second thought video.
This episode and others like it are made possible by the generous support of my patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to help me produce more content like this and get early access to every new video, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/secondthought.
A few days ago, you will feel like shit, but don't worry, it's just
now it is up to Congress to confront.
After that, I'm gonna do maybe LSF and also I'm gonna do OK Buddy Baby.
This egregious assault on our democracy. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down to the Capitol. And we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. And we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them. Because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong. We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved.
Hold up, man! Stop the steal! That's our country. We want it back!
I think one of the funniest parts about the Trump situation. Wait, dude. Hasan, I'm going to do OK Buddy Piker. Guys, when I say I'm going to go on OK Buddy, that doesn't mean the entire stream is going to be OK Buddy. Yikes, dude. I'm going to look at your fucking meme, okay? Holy shit!
At Hasanabi, you still look how I feel, Hicks.
I know that, like, it's younger people in my audience that make these memes. So, like, they can't help themselves. They have to behave like babies. Holy shit. Stop being babies.
These Democrats! Where's this is our country! We don't kill them!
On January 6, 2021, the world bore witness to what can only be described as one of the dumbest days in American history. The hot takes started flying immediately, and the internet was bombarded with tweets and videos trying to determine what exactly we were all watching. What do we call it? Is it a coup? A riot? Was it planned? Who are these people? Did we know about it in advance? What do they want? I could have deviated from my normal release schedule to give my opinions, but I decided it would be more beneficial if I waited a bit, gathered some more information, and provided a more nuanced take on the event that has so captured our attention for the past week. This is a huge topic, and it involves a lot of other subtopics, so I'm going to break this video up into chapters. Hopefully by the end, you'll have a better picture of what transpired, why it happened, and what it means for the country going forward. Before we begin, I need to make a few things clear. First of all, the claim that Antifa was secretly behind the riot is not only wrong, it's incredibly stupid. We have mountains of video evidence of exactly who was at the Capitol, including live-streamed vlogs from well-known far-right figures. Conservatives have been calling for stopping the steal and overthrowing the government for months. Now that an attempt has been made, a lot of those same people, including Republican elected officials, are strangely silent. This is what you wanted. Own it. We'll get into the specifics of who was present at the event and who was guilty of inciting it shortly. But I want to make one more thing clear. Since Donald Trump was elected president, pundits, journalists, and average Americans have taken to using the term fascism a little too broadly. Let me be perfectly explicit here. There were fascist elements within the Capitol riot, but you have to use the term correctly because it is very important. When many people use the term fascist, they're simply describing authoritarian tendencies, which is where the bizarre conservative claim of left-wing fascism comes from. I'm making an entire series on the resurgence of fascism around the world, but to give you a better working definition in the meantime, fascism, at its core, can be defined as palingenetic ultranationalism. Palingenetic meaning a belief in and desire for the violent rebirth of a nation to overcome a period of moral decay, and ultranationalism meaning an overwhelming loyalty to a perverted vision of one's country, often laced with bigotry and racism. Be aware that for the remainder of this video, if I use the term fascism, I mean actual fascism, not vague authoritarianism. With that out of the way, let's begin with Chapter 1. What happened?
We can take that place. And then do what?
Dangerous people.
Heads on pike!
On January 6, 2021, a crowd of thousands of Trump fanatics attended a rally in Washington, D.C., and after months of unofficial planning online and further encouragement from the president, they marched to the Capitol with one goal in mind: stop the steal. This slogan came to prominence in the aftermath of Joe Biden's electoral victory, as many diehard Trump supporters believed the Democrats to have stolen Trump's landslide win. This belief has absolutely no basis in reality, and before you call me a dirty lib, please note that I can't stand Joe Biden, and I think the Democrats are spineless and ineffective. But you cannot in good faith claim that Donald Trump won the election. And yet, here were thousands of people storming the grounds of the Capitol building, erecting crosses and Trump flags, breaking windows, getting into fights with Capitol Police, forcing open doors, and finally, running amok in the building. Rioters, many without a real purpose, took the opportunity to sit in various chairs, collect some souvenirs, and take selfies with suspiciously friendly police. Other insurrectionists did have concrete plans, some carrying zip-tie handcuffs in the hopes of kidnapping members of Congress, or, in the case of some of the more extreme QAnon fanatics, executing Vice President Mike Pence for supposedly betraying the president. For the next several hours, the Capitol was a scene of jubilation on the part of the rioters, looking more like an amusement park than a war zone. We saw all sorts of colorful characters at the riot, from wannabe Vikings to Special Forces cosplayers to people who
I have friends that have gotten visits from Secret Service who are like comedians or posters who have posted about fucking the president or whatever. And there are notable, famous Republican figures within the right-wing movement that are literally talking about like kidnapping the president or the vice, not the president obviously, but the vice president, numerous other members of Congress,
nice.
and like it seems like they just can get away with it, and it's wild. Even after they have acted on those desires, albeit in the most chud-like, hog-like, and potato way, but still
haven't gotten over the fact that the Confederacy lost their war 150 years ago. Seeing Confederate flags carried into the US Capitol as a sign of ultimate patriotism and loyalty to the nation is a truly fine example of irony. But the riot wasn't all fun and games. The spectacle claimed 5 lives, 4 rioters and 1 Capitol Hill police officer, who was knocked unconscious with a fire extinguisher and then beaten to death by the patriotic mob, with weapons that included American flags. Meanwhile, members of Congress were hunkered down in the House chamber with armed security pointing their guns at the mob outside. Eventually, the politicians were all evacuated without accident, including a number of elected officials who had helped spread the conspiracy theory that led to the riot. The rioting continued for some time, Trump supporters seeking out mainstream news reporters and assaulting them and destroying their camera gear, accosting passersby and demanding to know who they voted for, and chanting all sorts of slogans, including "Hang Mike Pence." Finally, hours after the ordeal began, the president released a lukewarm video asking the rioters to go home, but also calling them very special people, and saying that this is what happens when elections are stolen from the rightful victors. Capitol Police and the National Guard managed to clear out the area later that night, and the dumbest day in recent memory was over. We'll get to why it was so ridiculous later on, but next, let's move to Chapter 2. Who are these people? As much as conservative figures would like us to believe that this riot wasn't a bunch of law-abiding white Christian Trump supporters, through the magic of modern technology, we have a very good idea of the types of people who took part in the insurrection, in no small part thanks to the participants themselves. Rioters took selfies, vlogged, and bragged about their activities on all their favorite platforms, giving the rest of the world a good look at who we're dealing with. Now, I know I've been snarky up to this point, but here we really do have to engage with a claim that deserves a bit of nuance. Many people on the right, and even some other sources, have made allusions or outright asserted that the Capitol riot was the result of working-class Americans being pushed too far. On the surface, this seems reasonable. Most Americans can agree that things haven't exactly been going well for the working class, regardless of your politics. Over the course of the pandemic, billionaires have become vastly more wealthy, while tens of millions of Americans have lost their jobs, their health insurance, and their homes. The system favors the rich in this country. But to paint the Capitol crowd as honest, hardworking folks is less than accurate. For years, the media has loved to engage in rural diner fetishization, where they find a poor Trump supporter and condescendingly try to understand them. These people do exist, and it's a shame that they've been so lied to.
Top of the hour, every hour, I'm going to do a 60-second ad break here. And we're continuing with the video because this is a long one, and I apologize. But if you no longer want to see the ads, all you need to do is subscribe. You can do it for $5, or you can do it for free, or with ad block, or by switching your VPN over to like Turkey, because they never ever see fucking ads. Or you can just keep screeching about how I'm a sellout. But as we found out, it's only literally 2 cents an hour if you subscribe with the amount of fucking content I put out. Okay? Yeah, suck my sellout cock. Here is my here is the contractual obligation for the 1 minute ad.
To by the Republican Party. But from what we've seen from social media and coverage of the riot, a large percentage of the crowd was not working class at all, but rather wealthy conservatives who just wanted to be part of the excitement. Take these guys, for example, yelling at a handful of DC police.
Your fucking back, but we ain't got your back no more. We're the business owners. We're the veterans. We're the veterans. We're the business owners. We ain't your back, but we ain't got your back no more.
Business owners. These are the people that Republican policies benefit, not the workers these business owners employ. In the aftermath of the riot, the FBI was quick to put out a request to identify anyone at the event. The anti-Trump crowd was only too eager to oblige, which is a problem we'll discuss later. But regardless, what we've learned about the crowd so far should not be surprising. Among the attendees were the CEO of a tech company, lawyers, high-profile attorneys, Republican elected officials, both current and retired, the son of a Brooklyn Supreme Court judge, and this woman, a real estate broker from Frisco, Texas, who flew on her private jet with her wealthy friends to have some fun breaking windows. As is typical in America, the wealthy can brazenly commit crimes, brag about it, and face no consequences. This woman described the riot as one of the best days of my life. She went on to say, "This is a prelude to war. And if we know anything about war, it's that she will be far away watching all the commoners die while she and her rich friends continue to live lives of luxury. I won't disclose the names of any of the people I discuss in this section, unless they're already well-known or public figures. You can find them easily enough online if you're interested." The owner class was not the only group of people at the riot. There were also off-duty police and military personnel, who, according to official statements, flashed their badges and were simply let into the Capitol to wreak havoc. Seattle PD released a statement that at least 2 of their officers had attended the riot. And off-duty cops from all over the country flew in for the event. As we learned over the summer, where there are cops, there are white supremacists. And the Capitol Hill riot was full of them, both the really obvious kind and the kind that looks a bit more like your parents or your crazy uncle. The kind that don't see themselves as racist. As reported in The Nation, one woman said, "This is not America. They're shooting at us. They're supposed to shoot at BLM, but they're shooting the patriots." After months of trying to explain to people that the average white supremacist genuinely believes Black Lives Matter supporters are terrorists, here's a woman saying it out loud. Saying that America is supposed to shoot the people protesting police violence, not the people trying to overthrow the government for a loser president. As despicable and deeply absurd as that statement was, this woman represents the mildest form of white supremacists present at the rally. We also saw literal Nazis. This is where a lot of conservatives shake their heads and say, you can't call everyone you disagree with a Nazi. I'm not. I'm calling Nazis Nazis. This guy is wearing a Camp Auschwitz shirt, bearing the words, "Work brings freedom." This one is wearing a shirt that means 6 million wasn't enough, referring to the number of Jews murdered during the Holocaust. Neo-Nazi social media personality Baked Alaska live-streamed from inside the Capitol. That Viking guy from all the pictures? That's Jake Angeli, known by many as the QAnon shaman. That symbol he's got tattooed on his chest is widely used in Nazi and white supremacist groups under the guise of appreciating European heritage. We saw people flying the Kek flag, a symbol birthed in the bowels of 4chan, modeled after the swastika, and, like so many other internet symbols, easily dismissed as just a meme. NSC 131 was there. They're a neo-Nazi group based in New England and very active on Telegram. They said they would show up, and they did.
There were actual neo-Nazis that have, like, actual neo-Nazis like this that have, you know, that claim that they're Nazball or whatever, and they'll LARP as like leftists. And then right-wingers look at that and go, look at them, they're commies. It's like, what? Are you fucking insane, dude? No, commies kill people like that. Okay? Like, that's not a thing. Those are the people that the fucking commies kill, not the other way around.
Proud Boys founder and author of 10 Things I Hate About Jews, Gavin McInnes, was spotted at the riot too. So the next time someone claims the Trump cult is not totally infested with all manner of white supremacists, send them this video. We have photographic and video evidence. These people were all over the Capitol, and after the event, they were all over the internet, trying to convert the run-of-the-mill ignorant Trump supporters. Ironically, even having to explain to the less extreme conservatives that no, Antifa are not the real fascists, we the Nazis are the real fascists and you should join us. It's the type of thing that normal Americans would never expect to be going on in the political undercurrents of the internet, but here we are. So, we've seen business owners, millionaires, QAnon cultists, white supremacists, and literal Nazis in the crowd at the Capitol. Who else would you expect to see there? If you said Republican elected officials, congratulations, you're right. To anyone paying attention, it shouldn't come as a surprise that some of our fearless leaders took part in the insurrection. Many Republicans have been helping to—
Derek Evans is in the Capitol! I repeat, Derek Evans of West Virginia has breached the Capitol and is doing crimes. That's me, Derek Evans. I have breached the Capitol.
Spread the lie that Trump actually won the election. West Virginia state lawmaker Derek Evans was there, as were former Pennsylvania state representative Rick Saccone, Virginia state senator Amanda Chase, incoming co-chair of the Michigan Republican Party Michonne Maddock, Missouri state rep Justin Hill, Tennessee state rep Terry Lynn Weaver, Nevada state assembly member Annie Black, and likely others who were smart enough not to show their faces on camera. Other Republicans chose not to attend and instead tweet their support or pull the strings behind the scenes. Colorado Congresswoman Lauren Boebert tweeted out, "Today is 1776, and America is depending on all of us today. This is something I don't take lightly. I will fight with everything I have to ensure the fairness of the election." You know, like overthrowing the government and tossing out the legitimate results to reinstate the loser. Senator Josh Hawley offered a fist raised in support of the rioters as he entered the Capitol to vote on scrapping the Electoral College results. This vote was interrupted when his
It's so funny because, like, again, Josh Hawley, right? Like, he's one with the working class, right? I've said this before, like, you can fucking literally be a working class person that went to Stanford, Harvard, you know, Yale Law School, whatever. You could have been a working class person. You could be a working class person after graduating from those places. But if you ask Republicans, no, you're a bi-coastal elitist if you do that. Except literally every Republican that advances this agenda and advances this like insane, psychotic fucking shit that called me a bi-coastal elitist Andy, despite the fact that I literally went to a fucking state school, okay? I went to Rutgers University, not exactly the most bi-coastal elitist fucking institution. And the guy saying that I'm a fucking bi-coastal elitist because of my point of view literally is a Yale graduate, okay? Like, these motherfuckers, they graduate, they go to Yale, okay? They go to Stanford, and then they fucking turn around, they go to Harvard, they go to UCLA, which is a state school as well, but still pretty fucking coastal and pretty goddamn elite because it's pretty hard to get into. And then they fucking turn around and act like you are the fucking elitist. Why? Because you live in New York or you live in Los Angeles and you fucking barely make ends meet. Not for me in particular, but I'm just saying, like, there are plenty of fucking poor people that live in these places. And the goddamn oil barons, snakeskin boot-wearing son of a bitch, son and daughter that went to the top institutions of this fucking country are not the real fucking working class in the way that they try to LARP as. You are, okay? If you work, you are the real working class. Not the person who is a recipient of intergenerational wealth. Anyway, let's not forget you got a 1.5 GPA at Miami University, so your parents transferred you to Rutgers. No, I didn't get a 1.5. Why are you making it up? Like, it's already bad as it is. It was a 2.9, but it was already bad as it is in and of itself. I got a 1.5 GPA? What? Oh, fuck. Also, I graduated with honors, you fucking idiot. So who gives a shit? I literally graduated from Rutgers with honors, so suck
That's
my
nice.
dick. And not Miami University, University of Miami. Destiny losers trolling when he doesn't even have a degree. I don't think it's important to have a degree regardless. I think it's way fucking whacker to be like, oh, you have a degree, I have a degree, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think that shit is lame as fuck. Don't be an elitist. Don't be a dipshit. But don't especially be a fucking dipshit elitist if you don't have a degree yourself. Just like, don't fucking talk about being, liberals being bicoastal elite if you yourself literally went to fucking Stanford, dude.
Communism.
as he entered the Capitol to vote on scrapping the Electoral College results. This vote was interrupted when his buddies started smashing up the place. But when Congress reconvened later that night to finish voting, 8 senators and 139 House representatives still cast their lot with Trump and his absurd lies. To no one's surprise, all Republicans. So, to sum up the crowd at the Capitol Hill riot, it's an accurate depiction of what the Republican base has become. Misguided workers swindled by a cult of personality, wealthy business owners, QAnon cultists, white supremacists, and elected officials who would gladly fall on their sword to please Donald Trump. Let's move on to Chapter 3. Okay, so we know what happened and we know who's responsible, but why did they do it? What was the reasoning behind the riot? Just like there was no one single type of Trump supporter in the crowd, there were many distinct goals among the rioters. For many, simply getting into the Capitol building was a victory. It didn't accomplish anything, but it made them feel good. For others, there was a much more sinister goal in mind. Remember the picture of the guy with the flex cuffs? At least some of the insurrectionists were hoping to take hostages. What they intended to do with them is anyone's guess. But judging by the fact that they were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence, the Republican vice president," it doesn't take much imagination to assume that they were perfectly willing and probably eager to harm.
The person who's saying all culture war, no substance, what do you expect, dude? This is precisely what I was saying when it started happening. I was like, of course, if there was like an armed or at least like somewhat violent insurrectionist movement in this country, it would revolve around fucking protecting Applebee's or protecting the Applebee's of presidents, Donald Trump. Like, and his like petty desires, his narcissistic desires of not wanting to look like a fucking fool. Just like when, you know, most of the mobilization occurred in the beginning of fucking COVID, or directly as it relates to COVID, it wasn't fucking working class poor folk. It wasn't, you know, essential business workers. It wasn't frontline workers that were protesting. It was fucking hogs. It was like the small business owning Andy who owns a fucking nail salon and is like, I want to open the nail salon back. Or it was the fucking landscaping contractor business owner who wanted to get a fucking haircut. They defended Applebee's. Okay? That's it. That's the whole point is like, in America, we are not going to have a legitimate fucking working class uprising or movement or make the working class's demands be known in a meaningful capacity, because whenever there's like any sort of legitimate fucking uprising or movement or anything like that, it revolves around hogs doing hog shit.
Any Democrats they could get their hands on. But there was one overarching goal that united the mob: stop the steal. Simple slogans like "Stop the Steal" are incredibly effective. They provide a rallying cry and a reminder of what they hope to achieve. In this case, the end goal was overturning the results of the election and installing Donald Trump as president instead of Joe Biden. Donald Trump, a man who gave these people next to nothing, only cares about himself and his rich buddies, and who lost the electoral vote and the popular vote by 7 million votes. The word coup has been used a lot in the last week. In some...
Look at him, dude. Man, I got the... You know, I hate getting that XXL bomber jacket, because normally I can fit into an XL, but my goddamn beer belly made it so that I need a XXL. You understand me? I'm a real American, damn it. I drink Alamo beer.
Love you gesture, 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 love you gesture.
Let me tell you something, damn it. We're storming the Capitol.
In regards, it's appropriate. There was a group of people who tried to violently change the result of an election. But on the other hand, look at what happened once they breached the Capitol. Most of the crowd just started messing around. They sat in some chairs, stole the speaker's lectern, took some selfies, chanted some slogans, but that was it. They didn't go to any other government buildings, they didn't pursue evacuating politicians. As far as we can tell, they didn't really have any concrete plans at all. Not to step on any patriotic toes.
That's why when they were asked, they were like, I don't know, heads on pikes, right? Like, yeah, I mean, the mobilization was
Hassle.
like when you have everything given to you and you are protesting from a point of privilege, and your pointless protest is a relatively privileged cause. It's very difficult to have demands. Like, what is your demand? That, like, you overturn the democratic results of an election where, like, millions of fucking people more voted for the other guy? Like, you can't do that. And the people that are, like, terrorists in their eyes are people who are saying, like, here are the clear demands that we have. Okay? We want police to no longer be such an intimidating and violent presence in impoverished communities, specifically black and brown communities. We want the police to treat black and brown communities with the dignity and respect that they deserve. We want the police to treat black and brown communities to protect and serve black and brown communities rather than fucking protect and serve the interests of capital. Those are legitimate fucking demands. There's also actual policy demands that come along with that are associated with the movement. I think those are legitimate grievances, and I think those are legitimate demands. We're taking over the Capitol because we want to stop the Electoral College authorization.
I demand protected privileges.
Well, okay. Listen. If burning down your own city meant you won the Super Bowl, the Eagles would win every year. Because they riot when they win and they riot when they lose. Okay? So it doesn't matter. Like, rioting and eating horse shit from a police horse, which is a real thing Eagles fans have done. I've seen it. Because people from Philadelphia are freaks.
Go Birds.
No, that was here in Cleveland? No, I'm pretty sure. No, they've done it in Eagle. They've done it in fucking Philly, too. Oh, Birds! Anyway. God. Dude, Americans are such psychopaths, dude. Yo. Americans are such psychopaths that You don't know which city is famous for its sports fans eating a police officer's horse shit. Like, imagine that's the country we live in, boys. And now there's people in my chat saying, no, 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 we did it first, motherfucker. Are you kidding me? That's Cleveland, bro. How dare you give that to Philly, you fucking piece of shit? That's us. We did it. We're the fucking horse dung eaters. Anyway, I digress. But the sports joke I was trying to make is that, like, the game is about who fucking secures more touchdowns and gets more points. It's not about protesting the game afterwards. It's too late at this point. You can protest all you want. It's not going to change the reality. 85 million people aren't going to be like, oh, I guess they asked in a really mean way at the Capitol, so you know what I mean? I guess Donald Trump is still president. Leave Boston out. I try to think of it as a place that doesn't exist, okay? Don't worry, Boston. I try not to think about it at all.
But it doesn't really count as a revolution if you're trying to keep a president in power. When other countries riot and storm their seats of government, it's usually to demand changes that will materially improve their lives. What will keeping Trump in power accomplish? He doesn't care about the working class, who actually need material help, and the millionaires won't suffer under a Biden presidency. Biden is a corporate centrist dedicated to maintaining the status quo, and that means continued pandering to massive corporations and crippling austerity for the rest of us. But at the end of the day, Donald Trump disowned the crowd. Conservatives, he threw you under the bus when the riot became inconvenient to him. This is something that many on the right are beginning to come to grips with. This whole time, Trump wasn't a mastermind. He wasn't playing 4D chess. He was just a bigoted old man who knew how to push the buttons of his followers. He's a showman. He played his followers, encouraged them to fight for him, and then cast them aside when they risked their lives to deliver him the presidency.
True.
So no, this wasn't a coup. I suppose you could make the argument that if somehow they had actually captured the entire government, it would have been an actual coup because then they could have made real demands. But they didn't, and there's no indication that it was organized enough to do so. Nor were there any specific demands behind the slogan "Stop the Steal." The crowd may not have had any real chance of success, but regardless of their effectiveness, there will be very real consequences for the people of the United States.
I mean, this is pretty similar to my analysis from the day of as well. No. He's not saying it's a stupid coup and that's why it's not a coup. It's more so an insurrection. And the reason for why it's more so an insurrection is not necessarily because they couldn't act out on desires, but there was a lack thereof of desires. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's not only a coup if it's successful. There are plenty of failed coups that you still consider to be coups, right? The reason why, yeah, I stole his take that he had fucking a week later. Fucking idiot. That's why I use the term insurrection, right? Because a coup at least has like a clear-cut goal. And this is more like a mishmash of different spices of conservatism coming together to yell angrily about how they're upset that Donald Trump's fifis have been hurt. You know what I mean? That's the big difference. There is no like, we're gonna overthrow the government, have Donald Trump become president again. Okay, really though? Like, well, how are you gonna do that?
Touchdown. 1, 2, 3. Height 'em low. Height 'em high. And watch our
It's the difference between like
the road to victory.
It's the difference between like a 35-year-old man saying like, I'm gonna fuck you up, versus a 5-year-old kid saying like, I'm gonna beat your ass. Okay? You can punt that fucking 5-year-old baby. Can't necessarily do that to a 35-year-old dude. Like, one is a violent threat of assault. The other one is just like, shut the fuck up, baby. You know what I mean? Don't make me punt you like a football. Anyway. Yes, it's a plastic
In the aftermath
straw.
of the Capitol.
Yes, I'm using a plastic straw right now, which I reuse, by the way. But I'm using a plastic straw right now because I fucking hate the environment. Okay? Motherfuck the turtles, baby. You heard it here first. Fuck the turtles, dude. Fuck them. Mitch McConnell, you can suck on these plastic nuts, baby. Let's go. Pog. Fuck the turtles. Pog. Don't reuse plastic straws. That's gross. Why not? I don't give a shit. It'll be fine. I do reuse plastic straws. I have metal straws as well. It's just that, like, oh fuck, that was actually a good. It was a good. There's some good fucking video over there too. The fatal animal videos that we can watch later. But I have BPA in the straws. Yeah, dude. Big Penis Association. That's why I reuse them, dude. Yeah. Fucking got him, dude.
Riot, we've begun to see a social media crackdown and the expansion of the surveillance state. The president was suspended from Twitter, along with over 150,000 other accounts, including over 7,000 related to QAnon. Parler, the most well-known hive of white supremacists and QAnon followers, was threatened and then suspended for refusing to moderate hate speech and content inciting violence, at which point a reported 600,000 new users flocked to Gab, another site willing to host their hateful ideology. The discussion around social media censorship is fraught, with some asserting that banning vile accounts is a good thing, while others claim it's a slippery slope and will be used against any number of other groups. If you want my 2 cents, here goes. You can be glad to see fascism dealt a body blow and also concerned about the precedent this sets at the same time. Fascism, white supremacy, Nazism, cults completely detached from reality, these are all objectively bad. Limiting their recruiting power is a net good. Do tech companies have too much power in curating the online conversation? Absolutely. But I won't cry over the loss of literal Nazis. For those who say this will be used to justify banning left-wing accounts, trust me, I know. Censorship and bans have been leveled at—
Yeah, that's always the funniest thing where people are like, well, dude, this is going to come back and bite you in the ass. Like, yeah. What do you think, dude? I am a relatively notable leftist personality on the internet. Not like the biggest or anything like that, but a sizable one with actual fucking ways of reaching out to people in positions of power at these platforms. And I still get my fucking cheeks clapped literally all the time. Okay? All the fucking time. I get my cheeks absolutely cumstered and dumpstered upon because these systems that they put in place are just like, oh, you're talking about COVID? Boom! Penalized.
the left for years. It's not like suddenly we'll face a new threat. This already happens all the time. Tech censorship affected the left far more than the right up until the Capitol Hill riot, because the US is vastly more afraid of communism than it is of fascism. All that aside, now that the right is getting a taste of the free market deciding not to put up with their nonsense, maybe we'll actually see a growing consensus that corporations have too much power. Perhaps more concerning than the social media crackdown is the new justification for state surveillance. The FBI are suddenly the good guys for trying to identify right-wing agitators. Many on the left are gleefully
that's not good.
Turning in co-workers to the feds. And this is exactly what the powers that be want. This whole debacle is an incredibly convenient way for our leaders to normalize asking us to turn in our neighbors for perceived crimes against the state. Today, that crime is breaking windows at the Capitol.
Okay, first of all,
environmentalist girls are freaks.
There is a difference though. Like if you're fucking snitching on your hog neighbor because you want to get like a fun time out of it, that's one thing. If you're literally telling officials, whether they're the police or the FBI, the identity potentially of the guy who fucking placed pipe bombs in the RNC and DNC buildings, then yeah, fucking do that. I'm sorry. Like, I don't give a fuck what like Chapo says about this. I don't give a fuck what Second Thought says about this. I love both of them. I think they're all brilliant in their own way, and I think that's great. But like, yeah, dude, if you're fucking putting pipe bombs in a if you're putting pipe bombs, if you see someone putting pipe bombs, you definitely fucking, you tell someone. Don't be a fucking moron. Don't be an asshole. Even the goddamn IRA would at the very least have the decency to inform people that they were gonna fucking blow an area up, so they should leave. Holy shit.
Appreciate you. Politics React and Gaming Frogs in Hassle has pause has buff.
To the feds, and this is exactly what the powers that be want. This whole debacle is an incredibly convenient way for our leaders to normalize asking us to turn in our neighbors for perceived crimes against the state. Today, that crime is breaking windows at the Capitol, but what will it be tomorrow? I got a visit from DHS for supposed anti-American sentiment in my videos. How long will it be until making YouTube videos saying we should improve society is a crime against the state? To emphasize my point, and to quote the Wall Street Journal, Mr. Biden has said he plans to make a priority of passing a law against domestic terrorism, and he has been urged to create a White House post overseeing the fight against ideologically inspired violent extremists and increasing funding to combat them. Well,
The counter here that I find leftists who are fucking a little delusional. The counter here is when the White House did, or at least when the American administration did the Red Scare, which was against, of course, which was against a movement that wanted to overthrow and realign our material realities with a more egalitarian society and inherently anti-status quo. It was very effective when they did that. People are still terrified of communism. I don't know, maybe they'll just like McCarthy a couple white nationalists, who knows? But no, it won't happen. It'll be Patriot Act 2, and just like now we are all surveilled by the NSA, that dragnet will expand from simply looking at Muslims and brown people, black people, to some parts of the white people as well. And most of those white people that are being surveilled won't be, you know, I don't think they will be Nazis and whatnot, but they will probably be fucking people like me, even. Like leftists. People like you. And that's silly. It's silly as fuck to surveil someone like me. It is. It is. It's laughable. You're on camera? No, I just mean like, it's just dumb. It's dumb as fuck. But this is what the government does with its funds.
that's delightfully vague, isn't it? Even if Biden were to define terrorism as something most people agree upon, there's nothing stopping the next president from criminalizing something entirely different. This legislation will 100% be used more viciously against the left than the right.
Yeah.
Look how the Black Lives Matter protesters were treated. It was a bloodbath, and they were far more peaceful than the Capitol Hill goons. I guarantee you that Black Lives Matter will be classified as ideologically inspired violence.
It's great because he's talking about, look at how the Black Lives Matter protesters were treated, and then like some of the footage is literally cops beating the shit out of the media because they were in the presence of BLM protesters and offering them coverage.
Did you look white as hell? You are a white
extremism.
supremacist.
Laws that are left intentionally vague like this give the state a blank check to commit acts of horrible violence against their citizens. There is a precedent for this. At the height of the Red Scare, there was a group known as the House Un-American Activities Committee. Its prime function was to conduct investigations, or more accurately, baseless witch hunts, under the direction of Joseph McCarthy, from whom we get the term McCarthyism, the accusation completely without evidence that a US citizen is guilty of treason for being a suspected communist.
I don't think you have any conception of the danger.
Freedom of speech, brother.
Big tech have too much power when they censor
Freedom
us,
of
so
political
we need to give them
expression,
more tax
brother.
breaks and let them keep
Oh,
their
wait.
monopolies. This is
That's
literally
why.
what
That's why
libertarians
I always say, like, freedom of speech has never applied to the left historically in this country, and still doesn't apply to the left in this country to this day. So it's a laughable notion that these hogs are like, oh, I can't believe that, like, I lost 30 followers. This is McCarthyism. Like, shut the fuck up, Karen.
The Communist Party.
I want to make it clear that the United States Army does not coddle communists.
Unsurprisingly, we see a lot of this behavior even today. Many of the rioters were certain they were the only thing standing between the United States and communism, and news networks routinely equate communism with fascism, completely ignoring the fact that the US allied with the communists to defeat the fascists in World War II.
As a matter of fact, the communists
3 months.
did more than the United States in killing Nazis, specifically. So, say whatever the fuck you want about the USSR, but that remains to be true. You could say, oh, well, they threw more people at the problem. More of their people died. Like, yeah, okay. Literally. They did.
War II, which would indicate that one is indeed worse than the other. But regardless of how you feel about your friendly neighborhood communists, Biden's new anti-terror legislation will result in the baseless arrest of innocent Americans. Another consequence of the coup d'etat, or beer gut putsch if you prefer, is the enacting of a new batch of no-fly orders. Here's some footage of a rioter who's just been informed he can't get on his flight because he was identified as being present at the Capitol.
I love every single one of you, but this is what they do to us.
Wait, wasn't this guy just the anti-masker or something? I thought y'all told me that this wasn't a dude who was, like, he's like an old anti-masker video or something.
They kicked me off the plane, they called me a fucking terrorist, and they want to fucking ruin my life.
As much as watching mildly inconvenienced Trump supporters may delight some people, we need to again think about this in terms of state abuse of power.
The reason why I think a lot of people laugh at this stuff is because when you see a fucking real estate broker who's making, like, you know, $300,000, $400,000 a year fly out of the fucking Capitol and then be briefly put on a no-fly list so they do get a mild inconvenience is entirely different than, like, watching a fucking Muslim family try to come into the United States of America and get fucking finger blasted by the TSA for just looking brown and not doing anything else. There's a reason why those people are on the fucking no-fly list, and it's not because they're white. Saying that these people are put on a no-fly list because they're white is unironically the same argument that those people make. Whereas a lot of the people on the no-fly list, when they're Muslim or brown, are not there because of their allegiances to terrorism or acts that they have personally engaged in. They're on those lists because they're fucking brown and because they're goddamn Muslims, okay? Some of that even extends to the dragnet that you cast upon Arabs that are locked away in Guantanamo fucking Bay for being 1 degree separated from someone who is declared a terrorist, or 2 degrees separated from someone who is declared a terrorist by the American government. Those people can't be brown, but Trump supporters can very easily not storm the Capitol. Do you understand? Like, a Palestinian can't just decide not to be Palestinian anymore. You know what I mean? You can't just be like, all right, I was born in the Western Bank, or I was born in Gaza. Going forward, I've decided I'm no longer born in Gaza. Okay, sick, dude. Like, how is he gonna live going forward? What is he supposed to do? He's fucking Palestinian. What's he supposed to do? Nope, he's on every list forever. Just robbing what is happening right in front of us of all contextual undertones or context cues or anything, like the reason for why something is happening to a person, why this is happening, or what their protests are these grievances legitimate or illegitimate. Like, robbing all of that is what the Nazis do, and robbing it of context is what annoying debate lords do. So you always have to look at these situations. You have to definitely recognize the negative consequences of something and how it might actually turn on you. But you also have to remember that, like, you know, there is a difference between, like, arresting someone for murder versus arresting someone because they were at a fucking protest against police brutality. There's a difference between arresting someone or detaining someone because they're being a nuisance or because they're just homeless and existing inside of the confines of a restaurant, and arresting them because they were screaming, refusing to put on a fucking mask, and potentially putting others' lives at risk by potentially exposing them to COVID, and then screaming and putting people and threatening people. You know what I mean? There's differences in both of those detainments. Bro, that's what the Nazis do? Yes, Nazis, like actual real neo-Nazis on the internet, and they do exist on the internet, love to act like context is just completely unimportant. That's why they say, well, we are simply a white nationalist movement. Why can't we be a white nationalist movement? There's a black nationalist movement after all. Why can black people say black power, but why we can't say white power? That is literally robbing a statement, a sentiment, a legitimate grievance of all of the fucking contextual undertones that made it so, that made it the legitimate fucking movement it is, and then simply turning on it, simply turning it on its head and acting as though those who are in positions of power, those who are in the dominant group, are the ones who are actually being victimized by the true victims, saying, you're victimizing us, you're turning us into victims. It's at the heart of reactionary politics. That's what it is. Context is unimportant until I say the N-word in a heated gamer moment. Then context is all that matters.
Pair this no-fly rule with Biden's proposed anti-extremism legislation. Are climate activists extremists? Black Lives Matter protesters? Am I an extremist since I've been visited by the DHS? If I were to participate in a march for Medicare for All in DC, then I tried to get on a flight back home, would that trigger an arrest? Anti-terrorism laws always have disproportionately negative effects on the population they're supposed to protect. This time will be no different. One final consequence of the riot is the proposed impeachment of Donald Trump less than 2 weeks before the end of his term. I get it. He played a role in inciting his supporters to do violence. But casting Trump as the source of all America's problems is foolish. If we allow him to become this sacrificial goat, all the sins of the modern GOP projected onto the supposed anomaly that is Trump, we're letting Republicans off the hook for what has become mainstream conservative thought.
Well, don't worry, brother. Republicans are so fucking awful that they literally, I've been saying all this too. Democrats are trying to offer an olive branch to the Republican Party by saying, come on, we can't keep doing this fucking dance if you don't just say Trump bad, just like we've been saying, so that we can go back to regular order of business. And the Republicans are like, fuck you. No, actually, Orange Man good. You're the bad one. You're the real terrorists. We are not even going to take the fucking olive branch you're giving us to all of a sudden allow us to fucking seem like we're somewhat different than Donald Trump. Okay? They're not even doing that. They're not. It's literally the bare minimum. And they're not doing it. That's why I've been saying, like, it's not just Donald Trump, it's the entirety of the Republican Party that is fundamentally broken. So all calls for fucking bipartisanship from the Democrats is also bullshit too. And not only is it bullshit, but luckily, Republicans won't even do the bare minimum to clear their own name because they don't have to. Because they don't have to, because you, Democrats, you're pussies, okay? You're fucking pussies and you're cowards, and you will never do anything. So they will keep fucking your wives, they will keep fucking your daughters, they will keep fucking your boyfriends and your husbands, okay? They will keep doing whatever the fuck they want to do, and you won't do shit because you have a chastity belt. You have a fucking little penis cage or whatever the fuck those things are, okay? Just sitting in the corner trying to jack off as their wife is getting fucked. That's what the Democrats do, okay? They are cucks. After this, do you think the Republicans will have a hard time getting reelected? No! No! No. Of course not. 64% of Republicans say they stand by Donald Trump's decisions. A majority of Republicans still think that, like, Donald Trump is good. A majority of Republicans do.
Trump is not an anomaly. He is the embodiment of American conservative ideology. Fully 45% of Republicans support the assault on the Capitol, and that's just those who will admit it. Will removing Trump from office send a symbolic message that even a president can't get away with everything? Sure, in theory, but I just don't see it happening. In order to maintain the national myth of moral superiority, the president must be above the law. The president's job is to do horrible things. Order assassinations around the world, bomb schools and hospitals, overthrow governments and install puppet regimes, enact crippling sanctions to starve entire countries. The only difference is that Trump incited a bit of violence at home. The question is, will kicking him out or keeping him in better maintain the facade of moral superiority? That will determine the result of any impeachment hearings, which will probably already have occurred by the time this video goes live. Okay, this episode has gone on long enough. Let's move on to the final chapter. What does all this mean for American politics and the future of the country?
They're going to have to, we need a Republican Party. We need an opposition that's principled and strong. And I think you're going to see them going through this idea of what constitutes a Republican Party.
Let's start with this.
No, they're not. But at least he's honest. He's honest. Joe Biden, for all his faults, is being painfully honest here. Okay? Being honest to a fault, I would say. That is Joe Biden's worldview. He literally thinks we need a principled Republican Party. We have a principled Republican Party. It's called the Democratic Party, motherfucker. That's it. You're the president of it. Okay? If you want like an honest and principled conservative party, it's the Democrats. Literally, they are. They love the free market. They understand that like a little bit of government intervention every now and then is fine. They're just as corrupt as the Republicans are. They are, unironically, the fucking honest and reasonable conservative party. They are the ones who are, after all, literally ideologically against fucking deficit spending. Republicans didn't pass PAYGO. Democrats did. They literally, despite the fact that they're supposed to be the left-wing party in this goddamn country, they are the ones who fucking always reduce the deficit. They are the textbook conservative on economics party. Okay? They are. They are ideologically against socialized programs, unfortunately, for some fucking weird reason. They are the real conservatives. They're the principled conservatives, if you will. Democrats honest? Wait, what? Did you not hear the diss in front of honest? When did I say, I'm saying Joe Biden is being honest there when he says they need a principled conservative party. I said Democrats are just as corrupt as Republicans are. But as far as having ideological conservative fucking positions, Democrats are infinitely closer to that reality than Republicans are. What, you think I'm like a defender of Nancy Pelosi? Are you fucking brain dead, dude? Or are you okay? Democrats could use opposition, but not from the right.
Ridiculous statement. We do not need a strong
Everyone to the slight right of you is a conservative, bro. If you're not full-on communist, you're a conservative papega. What? No. First of all, yes, everyone to the right of me is more conservative than me. That's just how that works.
3 has right 3.
But that doesn't mean that they would be considered conservative just because they are further to the right of me. My guy, if you are the left-wing party, you're supposed to fucking do deficit spending, okay? There's no two ways about it. Your comparison within like American politics should at the very least be centered around like how politics is represented and seen worldwide. But Americans refuse to admit other countries exist on this fucking planet. The Democratic Party and their ideological positions are center-right everywhere else in the world when it comes to economic policy, or even far-right in comparison to like the UK, for example, specifically on healthcare. The Democratic Party would be considered far-right on economic policy that revolves around healthcare if you compare it to the UK, a country where, yes, the Tories do actually implement crippling austerity measures, but at least they fucking lie about funding the NHS as Boris Johnson did when he won. The Democrats, on the other hand, don't even fucking lie to you about how much they want to have socialized healthcare. They literally say, you don't get it, Jack. The guy who won literally said he would veto it. If it passed, in a hypothetical scenario, if it passed the House, and if it passed the Senate, and it arrived at his desk, as though those other people would not have made the calculations on deficits, he said he would still fucking veto it because he thinks it could be too expensive. In that hypothetical scenario.
Super glad that
You're going to sit here and tell me that that's like truly the leftist position, the left-wing party? Unfortunately, it's what we have for the left here in this country. That doesn't mean it's like actually a leftist position or a progressive one, even a little bit.
Republican Party. A strong Republican Party just tried to overturn the results of the election. We need to be honest here. The Republican Party has gone completely off the rails. They have open contempt for 99% of Americans. They think their voters are morons. Many of them are white supremacists and have zero regard for actual democracy. But more than that, a strong Republican Party is what has allowed Democrats to get away with doing nothing for years. Universal healthcare? Wish we could, but those darn Republicans are making it too difficult.
True.
Investment in green energy? Geez, sorry, the Republicans need that money for the military. Police reform? Well, we would, but the Republicans are stonewalling. The only reason the Democrats want a strong Republican Party is because the two parties rely on each other to maintain the status quo.
True.
They are both right-wing corporate parties beholden to massive corporations and billionaire donors. They play the identity politics game, casting each other as the greatest evil and a threat to the American way of life. Leadership changes hands every few years, and nothing ever changes. If Biden actually wanted to make real, positive, lasting changes, he would be taking advantage of the Capitol riot and blasting the Republicans 24/7, not asking people to be nice and unify with them. From people besides
Absolutely. And the quicker people recognize that, the better you will. I mean, it won't be better off for you in your real life, because it's probably better to just like check out of politics and be like, oh yeah, I'm powerless. Who gives a shit? And you know, focus on your own world, which is what a lot of fucking voters have done, and that's precisely why the plurality in this country doesn't fucking vote historically. Okay, the plurality of the voter eligible population in the United States historically does not vote, especially in contemporary elections, because they have apathy and they're like, it doesn't fucking matter, right? But make no mistake, if you're here, you probably do defend the Democrats routinely. But you have to come to the realization at some point that, like, the Democrats don't really... I mean, they'll do good things. They'll sometimes accidentally slip into good things, or they'll have a moment of, I guess, a moment of compassion. DACA is a great example of this. I'm not saying that the Democrats and Republicans are the same across the board. I always have maintained the position that marginal differences in legislation and legislative agenda leads to drastic consequences on the ground for real people. Okay? Democrats will have moments of clarity, moments of compassion sometimes. But ultimately, when it comes to certain areas, there is always bipartisan compromise and unity to be found. Okay? So just remember, there's a real reason why the Democrats are inept. And that real reason is because they don't have to actually do anything. As a matter of fact, if they do something, that might hurt the real constituents, the real corporate benefactors, the ultra wealthy, who own both the Democrat and Republican parties. That's the issue with the Democratic Party. That's why they have to be the controlled opposition, because if they were the legitimate opposition, if they started shitting on the Republicans, it's not that the country would be far too divided. The country is already divided as shit. It's that they would actually have to do something, and doing something from a left-wing position, like acting on the values that you espouse, because Democrats love LARPing as progressives, acting on the values that you espouse would be hurting the current status quo, would be hurting those who own capital. It would. Make no mistake. You'd be taking money from the hands of the wealthy, ultimately.
The political establishment, I understand the calls for unity. I really do. It would be much nicer if everyone could just get along. But that is nowhere close to the reality of modern America. We are more divided than ever, and in ways that are fundamental and impossible to compromise on. The people who stormed the Capitol think Jews, black people, gay people...
Bro, my favorite take. I said rich people, like, would be harmed by this, like you, taking money from rich people. Yeah, like me, motherfucker. Yeah, you hate me, bitch? Become a fucking advocate for higher tax on the wealthy and corporations, okay? Please, dude, please do it. I would be so upset. It would fucking ruin my life. I'd be so mad. Oh my God. If you hate me, please, oh please, I beg you. You know what would really fucking trigger me, dude? You know what would really trigger me? If you had higher tax on the wealthy, if you had especially higher tax on corporations on top of that too, because they do get away with literal fucking murder, so do the wealthy. Punish those who use who use overseas shelters and whatnot. But what would really fucking trigger the fuck out of me, dude, is if you had like a New Deal style economic program that revolved around creating jobs, specifically in the renewable energy sector, that would rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, okay, paid for by our tax dollars. Oh my God, that would trigger the fuck out of me, dude. That would be so fucking bad, dude. That would be maddening. So if you hate me, you should advocate for those things, because that would make me so upset. You know?
people and countless other groups are subhuman and deserve to be exterminated. I will not concede 1 inch of ideological ground to these people. I will be understanding of working-class Trump voters who have real economic concerns. Millions of Americans share those concerns, but we cannot stoop to barbarism and defend heinous ideas with the shield of economic anxiety. The Capitol riot has made many things clear. One of them is that the Blue Lives Matter movement was never about respecting police, it was about supporting cops brutalizing black people. It was a deeply reactionary ideology like the rest of American conservatism.
Wait, I forget that there's like some new people in here. That's me being sarcastic. I love all of those things, for the record. And I was referencing the Green New Deal and also tax cuts, tax hikes, which I advocate for regularly. Sorry. It's a bit that I do whenever someone like is fucking being annoying, like you and Bernie Sanders. Yes. I just wanted to make sure, okay? Sorry.
Any economic progress must come without the baggage of white nationalism, fascism, or any kind of bigotry espoused by Trump's most vocal supporters. The late Michael Brooks always said, "Be kind to people, be ruthless with institutions." Trump voters are our fellow human beings. We have to do what we can to help them shed their bad ideas without labeling them all a lost cause. The Republican Party, on the other hand, is a lost cause. It has shifted so far to the right that it's flirting with ideas that should alarm every American, not just the left. We have Republican elected officials suggesting that democracy is mob rule and that it's a bad way to organize a nation. The modern Democratic Party is as far to the right as we should entertain. The Republicans have dragged the Democrats to where the Republican Party was 3 or 4 decades ago. We do not need 2 right-wing parties in America. We need to relegate the Republican Party to the trash heap and build an actual left party to balance out the corporate Democrats. It's also been made clear that the Democrats are just as willing as the Republicans to use authoritarian tactics. In the wake of the George Floyd protests, Biden has said that he wants to increase police funding. In the aftermath of the Capitol Hill riot, he's said he wants to expand the surveillance state. The grip of the state tightens with each new administration, Republican or Democrat. That being said, the Democrats have not yet instigated mobs to try to change the outcome of an election. The Republicans have done it twice in the last 2 decades, and they got their desired outcome in 2000. The last thing we need to consider is that there has to be nuance when discussing uprisings like this one. People will always try to judge things by a universal metric, saying things like, "It is always bad to use direct action against the government." Resisting the government is not itself inherently wrong. It's what built this country.
Okay, good. Again, we agree on literally everything. That's why I was saying when this was originally happening, I was like, this will never happen. I don't care about the fucking walls of Congress being broken or anything like that. Just like there could have been, there can be in the future or at some point, or has happened throughout history, where actions like this are done by militant labor. And those actions end up having very good and very desirable outcomes for all of us. One of those examples is literally the weekend. Another famous example of that, of labor militancy, in this circumstance, for example, is the abolition of child labor. These are all literally things that were fucking hard fought, okay? And deaths did occur. No, not the musician The Weeknd. Like the days of the week that are days where you don't have to work. And I know you got
The reason the Capitol insurrection was bad was not because of the nature of uprisings, but because its reasons were pointless and terrible. What would overturning the election results accomplish? Giving the loser of the election power, and that's it. Donald Trump has been an incompetent president. He's weakened our alliances with friendly nations, made new enemies, refused to make common sense reforms or pursue climate goals, disarmament, or any humanitarian projects, and has not materially improved the lives of average Americans in any way. Keeping Trump in power is a bad reason to storm the Capitol. Consider why other nations rise against their leaders. To oppose crippling austerity, to demand better healthcare or necessary reforms. Always things that materially improve the lives of the vast majority of citizens. It would be foolish to look at the Trump riot and a hypothetical uprising over healthcare and say, these two things are the same. We in America have completely lost our understanding of class struggle. I can't imagine a more counterproductive effort than trying to overthrow the government to keep the rich guy who did nothing for you in power. As a result, we've got increased police budgets, increased surveillance, a social media crackdown, and sweeping new, vague anti-terror legislation. If you're going to make a fuss, at least have concrete demands and make sure it's for a good reason. Healthcare is the obvious example that comes to mind in America because our healthcare system is the most expensive in the developed world, routinely bankrupts people, has the worst outcomes of any developed nation, and goes away completely when we lose our jobs, which we found out is pretty devastating in the middle of a pandemic. So, to sum up a very long and frustrating topic, the Capitol riot was a foolish display of the worst tendencies of American politics. It exposed the ugly underbelly of modern conservatism, and the government response to it is also incredibly alarming. We are living in what's becoming more and more of a police state, with a petulant loser in charge of the nuclear arsenal, where half of Americans choose to cast their lot with bigots, racist, exploitative billionaires, and literal Nazis. We have no concept of what actual progress would look like, and the incoming administration is addicted to failure and terrified of actually having the power to govern. We're in a tough spot, and if the last week has proven anything, it's that the rest of the world is watching closely. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that this kind of content is supported by my patrons on Patreon. This kind of video, while very important, is something that sponsors won't touch. To keep my channel running, I rely on sponsors, AdSense revenue, and donations from generous viewers. By producing content like this, I lose out on both sponsors and AdSense. If you enjoy the kind of videos I'm producing and you're able to chip in even $1 a month, I would greatly appreciate the support.
He deserves it, dude. He did, like, of course. I watch second thought videos all the time.